The roar of Roland Garros is getting louder by the hour, and right at the center of that storm stands Alexandra Eala, a 20-year-old left-handed phenomenon carrying not only a racket into Paris, but the expectations of an entire region hungry for its next sporting icon. The clay courts of French Open are once again preparing to test the limits of endurance, discipline, and mental warfare, yet this year the spotlight feels different. This time, it is not only centered on defending champions or established superstars. It is centered on a young Filipina whose rise has become impossible for the tennis world to ignore. The momentum surrounding Eala entering Paris feels enormous. She is no longer viewed merely as an intriguing prospect or a talented junior transitioning to the professional ranks. She has crossed into a different category entirely, a legitimate WTA threat capable of disrupting seeded players, electrifying stadiums, and altering the emotional atmosphere of tournaments wherever she competes. Her climb toward the top 35 has transformed her from an underdog story into one of the defining narratives of the 2026 clay season. What makes this moment especially fascinating is how rapidly her identity within the sport has evolved. Not long ago, many analysts still framed Eala primarily through her junior accomplishments and her connection to Rafael Nadal and the Rafa Nadal Academy. Now, however, the conversation has changed dramatically. Roland Garros itself reportedly identifying her among the elite must-watch young stars of the tournament is more than a marketing move. It is recognition that her presence changes the emotional temperature of events. She draws energy. She draws crowds. She draws belief. And, perhaps most importantly, she draws pressure. Clay court tennis exposes every weakness a player possesses. Unlike fast hard courts, where raw aggression can shorten points and hide imperfections, clay drags players into prolonged physical and psychological combat. Every rally becomes an examination of patience, balance, shot selection, and emotional stability. For Eala, this season has represented the beginning of a true education on the surface. Her run in Rome showcased exactly why the hype surrounding her continues to intensify. Victories over players like Magdalena Frech and Wang Xinyu demonstrated her ability to absorb pace, redirect rallies, and dictate patterns against experienced opposition. Even in defeat against Elena Rybakina, there were stretches where Eala looked completely comfortable trading blows with one of the most dangerous hitters in women's tennis. But the transition from Rome to Strasbourg revealed the brutal volatility of clay. Her painful defeat to qualifier Alexandra Eala became the kind of match that can either damage confidence or accelerate maturity. The scoreline itself told the story of momentum slipping through tiny cracks, a dominant opening set followed by increasingly punishing rallies, mounting pressure on serve and crucial late breaks that turn the contest upside down. For young players, these losses often become defining moments. Because clay is not only testing your strokes, it is testing your willingness to suffer. That is exactly why Eala's development under the philosophy of Rafael Nadal matters so much. At the Nadal Academy, players are not taught to fear physical discomfort. They are conditioned to embrace it. Nadal's influence can already be seen in the architecture of Eala's game, the heavy left-handed forehand, the willingness to grind through exhausting exchanges, the relentless court coverage, and the refusal to mentally disappear after setbacks. The connection to Nadal becomes even more symbolic in Paris. Court Philippe Chatrier is effectively Nadal's cathedral. His legacy is inseparable from the clay of Roland Garros. For Eala, entering this environment as one of the tournament's featured young stars feels almost poetic. She arrives carrying lessons from the greatest clay player in history while attempting to build her own identity on the same surface. Yet what separates Eala from many other rising talents is not simply technique. It is emotional resonance. Across Southeast Asia, particularly in the Philippines, her rise has become deeply personal for millions of people. Filipino fans do not merely watch her matches. They experience them collectively. The chants, the flags, the emotional reactions flooding arenas in Rome demonstrated something the tennis establishment is still trying to fully understand. Eala represents visibility. For many overseas Filipino workers and diaspora communities, her success feels like recognition on an international stage that rarely notices them. That emotional connection is why the so-called Eala effect continues growing tournament after tournament. And now Paris is preparing to experience it. The doubles storyline only amplifies the excitement. Eala teaming with Victoria Mboko creates one of the most intriguing young pairings in the tournament. Their history stretches back years through junior competition, including Eala's victory over Mboko during her memorable junior Grand Slam triumph in New York. Now, instead of rivals, they become partners, blending Eala's tactical left-handed construction with Mboko's explosive athleticism and raw power. That combination could become dangerous very quickly. Young doubles teams often succeed because they play with fearlessness. Established pairings sometimes rely heavily on patterns and predictability, while younger combinations attack with instinct, aggression, and unpredictability. Paris crowds tend to embrace bold, emotional tennis, and this partnership feels tailor-made for that atmosphere. Meanwhile, the broader WTA landscape surrounding Roland Garros is undergoing a generational shift. Players like Coco Gauff, Iga Swiatek, and other emerging stars have already proven that youth is no barrier to conquering Grand Slams. Eala enters this environment not as a passive participant, but as part of the movement reshaping women's tennis into a faster, more aggressive, emotionally expressive era. And that is what makes her such a terrifying draw for seeded players. She is dangerous precisely because she is still evolving. Opponents preparing for Eala face a difficult problem. Her ceiling remains uncertain. Her patterns continue changing. Her confidence grows visibly with each major tournament experience. Add in the tactical complications of facing a left-hander on clay, especially one capable of generating heavy topspin angles into the ad court, and suddenly even established veterans can find themselves dragged into uncomfortable territory. Every aspect of her game will be scrutinized in Paris. Analysts will monitor the consistency of her serve under pressure. They will examine whether her movement remains balanced during extended rallies. They will study her shot tolerance in 15 and 20 ball exchanges. Most importantly, they will watch her emotional composure when momentum swings inevitably arrive. Because Roland Garros always creates moments of crisis. Rain delays, cold conditions, heavy balls, loud crowds, momentum collapses. 5-minute games that feel like entire matches. Paris does not allow players to survive on talent alone. It forces them to confront themselves. That is why this tournament could become such a defining chapter in Eala's career. Not necessarily because she must win it, but because this is where the tennis world discovers whether a rising star can transform pressure into identity. Right now, Alexandra Eala stands at the intersection of expectation and opportunity. She carries the hopes of Philippine tennis, the excitement of Southeast Asia, the teachings of Rafael Nadal's academy, and the attention of a global audience eager to witness the next breakthrough story on the WTA Tour. And the truly remarkable part? She is still only beginning. As the clay courts of Paris prepare for another unforgettable fortnight, one reality has become impossible to deny. Whether Alexandra Eala crashes out early, reaches the second week, or produces a miracle run deep into the draw, the tennis world will be watching every single step she takes. Because some players arrive at Roland Garros hoping to participate. Others arrive capable of changing the entire atmosphere of the tournament. Alexandra Eala now belongs firmly in the second category.